Welcome, thank you for being here. The last couple of months, I stumbled into a couple of, for me, enlightenments that were, for me, very profound in very different subject areas. And they asked me to tell you something about tradition, and for me, it fit really into that category. And tradition, I looked it up. The most important parts of tradition were words like behavior and how do we pass things on. Because I am an interaction designer, I have my own company called Monkey Business. We create games that teach people something, give them insight into something. So we sort of have an educational way of doing things. But I'm also a course leader at the Utrecht University of the Arts, where I'm responsible for game design, game art. And I have to make sure the new wave of students can find a job and they're prepared for the new work arena. And when I don't work, I like to draw portraits. I'm really fond of drawing people. And if I don't draw people, I like to draw food. And when I don't draw, I like to practice Aikido. This is in Japan, where I was for 6 months, just to really get to know the whole Aikido thing. I like throwing people around, and sometimes I combine the two subjects. So I start drawing Aikido hands, and because I think there's something magical there. And I think I have maybe a bit of a fake subject, and they come from different areas. So I hope you can stay with me and follow me. I teach at the HKU. I do Aikido, I draw, but I also follow a course becoming an Aikido teacher. And I want to explain a little bit about everything. So Aikido means to join the energy, and it's a way of living. So it's the path of harmonious energy, harmonious ki. And maybe you see it a little bit, how soft everything is and how fluid everything is in this demonstration. So you see this person gets attacked by the other person, but he's never off guard. He's always at ease, calm, centered. And Aikido was developed by Morihei Ueshiba at the beginning of 1900, based on Aikijitsu and other Jiu-Jitsu, other old Japanese martial arts form. And he thought there must be a way to make it more harmonious and to make sure that we actually go beyond the conflict. So he came up with this new form of martial art. And I've been doing this for 8 years now. And when I do it, it never looks as fluid as you just saw this person do it. It's always a lot of hassle, and it's very, very difficult. I find it very difficult. Just to give you some examples of the details you have to regard. A lot of details. When I master all the details, I have to make sure I do it in a proper way. I don't have to, once I start using force and power, it doesn't work anymore. So it's very, very complex, and there are many, many details and techniques to take into account. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I think I was doing okay. And there's this teacher in the Netherlands which I hold in high respect, and he came up to me and he said, Dimme, your Aikido is really nice, but it's rubbish. So you need to understand that it's a system. And this summer he invited me, he stopped teaching actually, he invited me to join him every Friday in Eindhoven to have one-on-one lessons with him, and he's trying to teach me what the system is. It's actually not one-on-one, there's one other person there. And this was a small event this summer, that started this summer, where I thought, oh, so it's about a system. At the same time, I was teaching at the HKU, the Utrecht University of the Arts, and I was teaching a module called Interface Design. And I am kind of a pragmatic kind of person, I think. And I said, well, after this module, hopefully you'll be able to understand that drawing is not about what you visualize. It's not about what you actually show. It's about how you look at the world. This is a bit of an ethereal kind of thing, but it was very, I think that's key to what I actually try to teach students. And in order to get there, I just made one slide and I said, if you understand, you can visually structure information, if you can put it into a timeline information, and you can build it and test it, you are able to build an interface. After 8 weeks, this is all the students needed to learn. Visually structure information, temporally structure information, and then test it and build it. Then you need to practice it a lot, and then you'll start to understand what interface design is. So I gave them a very, I thought, easy assignment, and I said, well, according to the official, we call it module, it's the plan for the subject. Why don't you re-visualize this? Because I think it's not very clear. It doesn't structure the information in a very good way. I see a lot of same information being repeated over before I actually get to the content I find interesting. So I gave them this assignment to clean it up and practice the organizing the information. And it didn't work. There was a lot of, they didn't get it according to my feeling. And I got these reactions that we just want you to show us, tell us what we should do so we can do it. If you just tell us how it works, then we are able to do it. And I didn't know how to fix this. I told them it's elbow grease. You need to practice it and do it over and over again in order to understand what the bigger system is. And I had one student, and I really appreciated her honesty, and she said, we expect everything to be handed to us on a silver platter, and then, which only makes us learn less, but we really need to put effort into it. But for me at that point, she was kind of the lone person in that room who actually understood this. So I thought, how do I make this work? How do I explain to them that even painters eventually talk about how we look at the world and not about the product anymore? It's for me, Picasso was a big game changer when studying art. Picasso, when he was 16, was able to draw amazing portraits, really nice portraits, and he went beyond that and said it's not about what we visualize, it's about how we look at the world. The third thing that happened this year is when I did the Aikido course, and I'm studying to become a teacher. We do both practice on the tatami as well as in classroom. And this person, called Ad Vogels, gave a lecture about how we make a plan through the year. How do you teach Aikido through a whole year and make sure everybody makes progress? And he said, Aikido has a motto. It doesn't matter what kind of style of Aikido you do, there's a motto. And it's generally something like uniting body and spirit to become one with the universe through figures training. Being a pragmatic kind of person, I was like, yeah, well, okay. I don't really know how to relate to this, but sure. And he said, he called it themes. There are themes that sort of get you there. It's about keeping one point. It's about relaxed relaxing completely or sending out ki. To me, even though I practiced this for 8 years, it's still kind of vague. And then he put principles underneath that. So he said, mind your breathing, beware of your presence, put no strength in your limbs. And I thought, oh, this I do know. Every week I try to practice these things. And then we have exercises to actually get there. So I won't bother you with all the Japanese names, with all these small things, how you put the hand on top of the other hand and how you throw somebody, make you do this. And then it sort of hit me. So all these little things I do every week, multiple times, they sort of get me over there. And this I could understand. And being somebody who draws a lot, I understood that drawing, for me, I made the same journey while drawing. So I have all these students who tell me, please let me master the technique, let me master the tools. I want to learn how the pencil works or how Photoshop works, because if I can do that, then I'm there. And once they master the tools, they say, oh, now teach me how to make a really nice visual, a nice painting, whether it be persons or surroundings, environments. And I think drawing people, I went through the same thing. I ended up drawing people like this, where people just said, oh, that's a really nice picture, a nice photograph. But I drew it. It's hand painted. So it lost all value, because it's not a painting anymore. There's no added value in doing this as a drawing. So I needed to make it more loose, more put my own signature into it maybe. How do I make sure it's still a painting? And I can stylize it. Somebody just said, your portraits are more kind of caricatures, which is also a way of putting your own signature in there. But it's about going beyond the product and just how do you visualize, how do we look at the world, and what's my signature in it? Who am I to, what do I bring as an artist? There's a very interesting person called Miyamoto Musashi, a samurai from 1600, who was, besides a samurai, an artist. And he said every Budo person, every warrior, should also do calligraphy and theater and painting. And he made this drawing of a bird, which I think is amazing. And if you look at it closely, it's just the bare essence. So the whole branch on which the bird is seated, to me, is like a sword stroke. It's just whoosh, and that's it. So the essence of this person is, to me, reflected in this painting. And then we go beyond just the tool, and we go beyond the product. So I started to combine these things in my head, and I thought, if it's about mastering the technique in drawing, and it's about mastering the result, eventually, if I transcend that, it's, for me, how do I perceive the world? Or what's the core essence of somebody when I talk to a person? How do I visualize that person in the core essence? And I started talking to people around me at the HKU and other people, and I said, so if you play an instrument, you can make a song, what's your transcendence? So how do you go beyond that? I asked my coder, and he said, yeah, of course, it's never about the language, it's never about code, it's never about the game or the app, it's just how does the world work? And for some people this was very clear, but I didn't know how to tell this to my students. How do I make sure we get to the next point? So in Aikido, maybe it's about being fluid and gentle and how to resolve a conflict, but at the end, something really changes in me. There is no conflict. So the way I deal with other people, or at least I try to deal with other people, is to see that everything is connected. But I do that by, strangely enough, twisting somebody's hands a couple of times a week to realize it has no use. So I find it very interesting. And I think Japan, the Japanese people, they have a word for it called do, like Aikido and Judo, and it means the way. So they really ritualized and made a tradition out of becoming an expert, perfecting one profession, a skill, in such a way that it transcends the actual technique or the product. And you can do that by having tea ceremonies or arranging flowers, shooting bow. But how do I, as a teacher, give students this kind of purpose? And it's very interesting. I think as a teacher, I hop in and out of the Utrecht University of the Arts. I leave sometimes and then I come back. And 10 years ago, I had students who just sat down and said, I want to do this, and they started making things. And now I have students who say, you need to hand it to me and tell me what I should learn so I can do it. Which is, for me, I think very much related to the online courses, where you can just Google everything, and the moment, it looks like everything is just up for grabs. You can get all the information you want. One of my students just said, you can actually, what's the Dutch expression? Alles is voorhanden. Everything is within reach. Everything is within reach. But at the same time, I think it's not, because you can get the information, but you still don't have the skill. And thinking about lifelong learning, which I think now are key points in Dutch education, lifelong learning, flexibilization of the educational system, blended learning, online courses. What do I teach my students? And is it skill-based? Or is it mindset? And then we get, at the same time, we have all these new news articles coming by that says, okay, so this chip maker created a first video game level just by artificial intelligence. We have art being generated by computers. And we had a very interesting discussion with all the teachers a couple of weeks ago who said, but computers can never be creative. And during the same day, it was proven wrong, because computers can very much be creative. So what do my students do? What do I teach them? This is just a filter, and a filter changing a picture into sort of painterly kind of way. But for me, this becomes interesting. I try to reach this kind of painterly feel in my paintings, and now it's being done in an instant. So what's it about? When the new student asked me, so we want you to tell us what to do so we can do it. And I just want to say, so how some people already start smiling. It feels like this question, I seriously doubted whether I should put this picture in, but this is the feeling I get from it. How to draw an owl, draw some circles, and then just draw the rest of the fucking owl. You need to make hours. You need to put in it's elbow grease. And it's not making hours in order to become better at the tool. It's not hours to become better at the product. It's so you start to understand the worth of it. And I'm teaching a minor as well. It's called Crossover Creativity. And they've been doing a lot of research into very interesting subjects, future health, smart cities. They've been going at it for 4 or 5 months, and I think they have some really nice concepts. Battling loneliness at student level, depression, working with old people, safety in the neighborhood. And after 4 months, they said, I don't feel any ownership of the concept. And I think being in this kind of train of thought right now, it's because they didn't make anything so far. Once you start making something, it becomes your own. You put effort and literally energy into something, it becomes your own. And not only the product, but also the process. And I think it adds to your character. So, as a sensei, I have sensei who teach me something. A sensei literally means somebody who was born before or who has regards the previous. What is my role as a teacher? I don't call myself a sensei, but what do Japanese teachers teach me as a teacher? Or what does this way of dealing with students, how can I translate this to the students? It's about purpose, I think. And in Aikido, we have several Q grades. So we call it diplomas. We start with, we only have white belts. Judo has colored belts, we don't. So up to first Q, that takes me about 5 years if I do it really quickly. Then I have 4 more black belts. And at the first black belt, I really mastered the technique. I'm being consequent at it. Then I am able to put more feeling into it, just to put it in a sort of general way. And over here, I need to put my own signature into it. I have to say, this is who I am as an Aikido teacher, and this is, or as an Aikidoka, not a teacher, this is what I think Aikido is about. And after this, it becomes very loose. You don't get any grades for exams anymore. You have to do it because you contribute to Aikido. You have to pass it on. You have to start teaching. You have to make a contribution to the art. And this, to me, sort of changes mastery of something into a purpose. And how do my art students, because Aikido is a martial art, so this is all about art, and which I find interesting because coding, doing the same thing, apparently is also art, which I recognize, but I think for some people this is a new kind of idea. How do I give students in 4 years the same kind of how do I make sure they make the same leap? Because I only have 4 years, and they're very busy with how do I don't get a lot. How do I make sure my debt doesn't get too much? Because the study debt is becoming a difficult thing right now. What does it mean with the new changing techniques that's happening? And we only have 4 years to get the most out of it. And I want to make sure I give them something that makes them realize it's not about the process, it's about what you add into your character. And if you do that, I think you can do it for a very long time. Aikido has a lot of old people, and you're still able to do that very, very well. So I have a lot of questions. I gave you a lot of questions, like how do I do this? And I wanted to give you sort of an idea where I think this might be heading. And I thought about my first teacher, just around the corner, and he always said, so Aikido, talking about Aikido, is like pointing to the moon, which I still have to ponder about every once in a while, but I think it's very true in this setting. And Keiko, practice, just doing over and over and perfecting all the skills and mastering the skills in order to go beyond that is what I think creates a do. So I hope my students, and maybe most of you as well, have found a do or will find a do that gives them purpose by making something and by doing something. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.